The world doesn't collapse with bombs alone. Sometimes it begins with tariffs, balance sheets, and empty hotel rooms. On August 12, 2025, a headline out of Beijing struck with the precision of a missile. China imposes 75.8% anti-dumping duties on Canadian canola. What followed wasn't just an economic dispute. It was a story of farmers and factories, of debt and desperation, of nations discovering what it means to fight wars without soldiers. Beijing thought it could humiliate Ottawa. After Canada, together with its Western allies, slammed Chinese electric vehicles with a 100% tariff, China reached for a weapon that cut to the bone: Canadian canola. Canola isn't just a crop. It's the lifeline of the prairie provinces, a $43 billion industry supporting 200,000 jobs. Beijing's timing was ruthless. Just before harvest, just as contracts were signed, just when farmers were most vulnerable. The shock hit like a hammer. Futures on the Winnipeg Exchange crashed 6% in one day. Hundreds of millions evaporated overnight. Contracts collapsed. Cargo ships sat stranded in Chinese ports, and importers dumped tons of seed and oil onto secondary markets at a 30% loss. For most countries, this would have been a death sentence, but Canada refused to surrender. Out of the chaos emerged a three-pillar counterstrike that turned weakness into strength. Within days, federal and provincial governments convened emergency sessions. They poured oxygen into the system, raising agri-stability coverage from 80% to 90%, doubling payouts, and advancing millions in interest-free loans. Farmers who feared bankruptcy suddenly had lifelines. This wasn't charity. It was survival strategy. Protect the base, or the entire chain collapses. While China built a wall, Canada built bridges. Japan absorbed nearly 1 million tons. Mexico, the UAE, France, the Netherlands, Bulgaria all stepped forward. Exports to Europe surged 20 to 30% in one quarter. Buyers wanted more than seed. They wanted Canada's reputation for reliability and its non-GMO quality. Dependency on Beijing was being cut, vein by vein. Here lay the real transformation. Canada stopped being a supplier of vulnerable raw seed and began forging itself into an energy and protein powerhouse. Crushing plants roared to full capacity. March 2025 set records with over 1.2 million tons processed. Canola oil, once just cooking fuel, became the golden liquid feeding a renewable diesel boom. At Strathcona in Edmonton, Imperial Oil's refinery began producing 20,000 barrels of renewable diesel per day, enough to consume 2.5 million tons of canola annually. On the East Coast, Bria Renewable Fuels added another 18,000 barrels daily. This wasn't reaction, it was reinvention. Every ton processed at home meant jobs, innovation, and energy security. The irony was brutal. By trying to cripple Canada, Beijing forced its rival to become stronger, more self-reliant, and more valuable to the world. Meanwhile, Chinese industries scrambled, paying higher prices for lower-quality substitutes, even turning back to Australia, a partner they had once shunned. The lesson: in the age of economic warfare, resilience beats raw power. But tariffs were only one battlefield. Behind the headlines, two superpowers were quietly suffocating under their own financial mistakes. At nearly 300% of GDP, China's debt is staggering. To climb party ranks, local officials inflated GDP with reckless projects, ghost cities, empty highways, bridges to nowhere. Legally barred from borrowing, they created shell companies, local government financing vehicles, borrowing billions with land as collateral, funneling cash into useless construction. The result? An economy built on illusions. When Evergrande collapsed, revenues dried up, but the debts remained. Fitch downgraded China's outlook, projecting deficits climbing above 7% of GDP. Ghost towers became monuments to wasted wealth. Across the Pacific, Washington's machine runs on chronic deficit spending. Both parties promise more entitlements, bigger defense budgets, endless programs. Revenue never matches. By June 2025, the federal deficit had already ballooned to $1.34 trillion. Inflation stalks every family like an invisible tax, seen in the grocery bill, the gas pump, the rent check. Unlike China, the U.S. has no $40 trillion asset cushion. Its net worth is negative. Its only collateral is the future labor of its people, the promise that their children and grandchildren will pay for debts piling up today. China's cage is domestic. Its debt is internal. Its risks concentrated at home. If confidence collapses, the system implodes inward. America's gamble is global. It borrows on the back of the dollar's reserve status. The moment creditors lose faith, Tokyo, Brussels, or Beijing itself, the entire house shakes. Interest rates spike. Savings vanish. Bankruptcies explode. Different paths, same destination. Unsustainable collapse. The only question is, who falls first? And will their fall drag the other down? While superpowers duel over tariffs and debt, another crisis unfolds in silence. America's soft power, the ability to attract, inspire, and profit from global visitors, is bleeding out. Tourism isn't entertainment. It is lifeblood. Jobs, taxes, public services. In California alone, 2024 tourism spending hit a record $157.3 billion. In Nevada, Las Vegas roared back to life after the pandemic. Florida thrived on Canadian snowbirds. Then came the reversal. By 2025, international arrivals dropped 9% nationwide. Canada, Japan, the UK, all pillars of U.S. tourism, pulled back. In California, foreign arrivals fell 9.2%. Nevada saw gaming revenues dive. Florida watched Canadian visitors vanish, slashing billions in spending. Hawaii, where tourism is 1/5 of GDP, faced closures and layoffs. The effects ripple like aftershocks. Local parks left unmaintained. Scholarships vanish as funding dries. Hospitals stretched thin without tourism dollars. The U.S. isn't just losing tourists. It's losing trust, reputation, and the image of being the world's playground. Cities that once embodied American allure, New York, San Francisco, Las Vegas, now echo with silence. Empty rooms, shuttered restaurants, staff cut mid-shift. The symbols of power are turning into symbols of decline. 3 crises, 3 stories, 1 truth. Canada faced a trade war and turned it into renewal. China built growth on sand and now drowns in its own debt. The United States, addicted to deficits, is watching its soft power evaporate in the silence of empty airports and deserted casinos. This is the real battlefield of the 21st century. Not missiles, but markets. Not soldiers, but supply chains. Not invasions, but debt burdens. And when the dust settles, the victors will not be the loudest or the largest. They will be the most resilient. The question is no longer whether one giant will stumble. It is whether the world can survive the crash when they all do. In these silent wars, power isn't measured by weapons. It's measured by who can endure the storm and who breaks beneath it.